Let's talk about the big news now for all college-bound high school students. The SAT is about to get a major overhaul. You won't be hearing pencils down for much longer. ABC's Andrew Dimbert has all the details.
A big change is coming to the exam once deemed essential for college admissions. The SAT is moving away from paper and pencil and going entirely online.
Fewer students are taking the test, so they're trying to adapt to that.
Test takers will be allowed to use their own laptops or tablets, but they will still have to take the test at a monitored location or in school. And the digital SAT will be shorter, 2 hours instead of 3.
1 + 1 always equals 2, so part of the adjustment will be getting students more familiar with how to navigate the test on a computer, but at the same time, the content is going to be important, so they have to know that first and foremost.
The tests have been criticized for bias, critics saying the questions disadvantage minority and low-income students. The College Board, which administers the test, says the new SAT will cover a wider range of topics, saying it will be easier to take, easier to give, and more relevant. The changes come after more colleges and universities made the test optional for admission. A recent survey finding nearly 80% no longer require standardized test scores from students.
And our thanks to Andrew Dimbert for that report. Let's talk more about this. We're going to bring in Priscilla Rodriguez, the Vice President of College Readiness Assessments at the College Board, which facilitates the SAT. Jeff Selingo, author of Who Gets In and Why? A Year Inside College Admissions. And also Natalia Cossio, a student who participated in the pilot digital SAT program. So Natalia, I'll start with you. What was it like taking this new SAT? I know you took the PSAT on paper, so do you think doing it this new way digitally was easier? Describe it.
I thought the digital SAT was a lot clearer. To me, it was a lot more concise. And I think in our day and age, it's very practical to be using digital.
Right, because I understand you can use a calculator for the math, right? And the writing segments are different. Okay, explain to me, because I'm having flashbacks of the panic attacks I had when I took the SAT.
Oh, yeah. I remember taking the pre-SAT on paper, and the passages were incredibly long. And I feel like with the digital version, with everything very concise, and I thought it was it helped me respond to the question much easier.
Okay. Oh, boy, I wish I had this in my time. Priscilla, why make this change now?
The announcement we made yesterday about the digital SAT is really timed to reflect that students like Natalia are living so much of their lives digitally and are doing more and more of their learning and testing digitally. So really, in some ways, this is us catching up to what students like Natalia are doing and where they feel most comfortable and confident in showing what they've learned in school. And going digital is allowing us to introduce a wide range of benefits, right? Changes and improvements based on what students and teachers have been telling us over the years that they wish we could do differently. And a lot of those can only be done differently if you're a digital test. So you mentioned some earlier, but the shorter test, the built-in calculator available to all students to use throughout the math section, and the ability to get students like Natalia their scores back faster so that they can see how they did, decide if they want to do some targeted practice and perhaps retake. If they're happy with their score, put it forward on their college application. And if they're not in this test optional environment, they can choose to not put it as part of the portfolio of their strengths and interests that they're demonstrating to colleges.
Yeah, I mean, that just all makes sense. Well, let me follow up, Priscilla. You know, we heard just now in Andrew's report that 80% of colleges are no longer even requiring standardized test scores for admission, right? Just 1.5 million graduating seniors actually took the SAT last year compared to the 2.2 million in 2020. So why do you think so many colleges are not requiring this anymore? And do you really think we still even need this?
So the move to widespread test optional among colleges and universities was really born out of necessity 2 years ago as COVID hit, and students were not only unable in many places to take the SAT, that has changed since then, but also were at home. And so that flexibility came from colleges and universities, and I think was completely respectful for where students are. At this point, what we're focused on is making the SAT the best possible option. So students like Natalia and the millions of students who continue to take the SAT can show what they know in the core reading, writing, and math skills that they learn in high school that are important for success in not only college, but in career. And then again, have the power now to decide if they want to put their score forward. It can be a really helpful data point. I want to share one, which is that in the high school class of 2020 here in the US, 1.7 million students who took the SAT that year had SAT scores that either confirmed or lined up really nicely with their high school GPA. Great data point for a college admissions officer to have that confidence in what the GPA is showing, or even exceeded what their high school GPA was demonstrating about them. That makes it a real source of strength. And those 1.7 million students included 300,000 from rural communities, 600,000 who were first gen in their family to go to college, and 700,000 who were Black or Latino. I was one of those students many years ago, but the SAT opened doors to colleges and scholarships that I never would have known about, and certainly ones that have transformed my life and career. And that's true for millions of students around the world every single year.
Interesting. Okay, I have a thought on that. I'm going to follow up, but we got Jeff back. So while we have the signal, Jeff, I want to just take it to you. How do you think that the new digital SAT could affect the admissions process? And this is an important question just for me looking back. You know, Priscilla mentioned her past. You know, for me, I was not a great test taker, right? But I was a good writer, and I knew I wanted to be a journalist, but my SAT scores impacted where I could go to college. I mean, I remember admissions officers saying to me, SAT scores just aren't there, sorry. But I ended up being very successful in the business. So it was a big disadvantage for me that SAT scores played such a factor in my admissions process. It impacted where I went to college. So how do you see this overall affecting the admissions process for kids that could be really successful at certain colleges that may not get in because of SAT scores?
Well, I think the big question is whether the adaptive piece of the SAT will change kind of scoring. And so will some students end up doing better on it or worse on it, depending on how the adaptive piece works, meaning that the test gets harder or easier as you go on and how that affects the ultimate score. I think the other question is whether we're going to see, for example, more schools continue to stay test optional. And will that then impact the number of students who actually take the SAT? I think those are the two big questions coming out of this over the next couple of years.
Jeff, do you think we really need this test when you think about multi-intelligence, right? And looking at other ways to evaluate students. I mean, the interview process is so important. Outside activities, how motivated they are. Test scores don't always show the drive in a student.
We also have so much more data on students and so much more information in the college application than we've ever had before. And so that's another thing that has really changed over the decades about the test as a big piece of college admissions. It's now one of many pieces. The year I was embedded in these three offices, and this was when tests were required by these three colleges I was embedded in, they still used it as one of many pieces of information about a student. So I just don't think it's as important as it was, 30, 40 years ago when many of us took the SAT.
Oh, yeah. And the panic attacks are still real. Natalia, what do you do to prepare for the SAT? Did you take any kind of prep classes?
Oh, yeah. I purchased a book, an SAT book, that helped me a lot. I remember going on Khan Academy, their free tutoring SAT, and I take that like maybe once a week, and that really helps me, I guess, improve my score over time.
That's actually good advice. Khan Academy is still free, right? If I remember right, I've used that with my kid. Yep, everyone's nodding. That is such an asset. We didn't have that, when I was growing up. So Priscilla, let me ask you about that, because the SAT has been criticized for favoring students, right, that can afford tutoring. I mean, things like Khan Academy are out there now, which is great. Those are free. But these prep classes can be really pricey. They were pricey when I was going to school. So did that play into this decision to go to digital as well, to just to help all types of students, no matter what their background, you know, that maybe couldn't afford the advantage of tutoring or classes, have a better shot at doing well at this, or being at least a part of what Jeff says, a different look at how these scores are tallied and distributed?
That great practice resource that Natalia mentioned, and it sounds like you're familiar with too, is called Official SAT Practice on Khan Academy. We developed that in partnership with Khan Academy back in 2015. And in the 6 or 7 years since then, it has become the #1 way students practice for the SAT, more than all paid test prep combined. So that really was and continues to be about doing exactly what you said, evening the playing field and allowing all students to get their hands on real SAT material from us through Khan Academy, practice tests, and the ability to just refresh on these core reading, writing, and math skills. As we make this transition to a digital SAT, we're taking that commitment to free world-class practice a step further. So later this year, we will be releasing full-length digital SAT practice tests on the actual digital test player or app that students will take the digital SAT on. So students like Natalia will be able to download the app, which they'll need to do anyways before test day, and actually take real full-length practice tests on it so that they can get, you know, familiar with the functionality, how the questions are gonna look. And that is so that any student can walk in feeling comfortable and confident on test day. There are no mysteries, there are no surprises. These are the core reading, writing, and math skills that students are learning in school.
That's so, I mean, evening the playing field, that's the bottom line there. This was such a great discussion, especially as a mom. Priscilla, Jeff, Natalia, thank you so much. And Natalia, let us know where you get accepted into college, okay? We want to know, we want to follow up.
Of course, thank you so much.
You bet. Good luck. Jeff, Priscilla, thanks so much.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.